Well, in other news, yesterday the Supreme Court heard oral arguments challenging a pro-life law in the state of Idaho. Now, this is the first time the court has considered a state's law regarding the sanctity of human life and abortion since the overturn of Roe v. Wade in 2022. Idaho's law protects the life of the baby unless the mother's life is in danger. Now, the Biden administration has argued this violates federal law requiring federally funded hospitals to provide care to emergency room patients. Now, the state argues that the federal government is essentially seeking to turn emergency rooms into abortion facilities. Joining me now to discuss this is Idaho Attorney General Raul Labrador, who defended Idaho's law before the Supreme Court yesterday. Attorney General Labrador, welcome to Washington Watch. Good to see you again.
It's great to be with you.
Well, first, explain to our viewers and listeners what the issue was before the court yesterday.
Yes, it's a pretty simple issue. It's actually the Biden administration is arguing that EMTALA, which is a 40-year law that was signed by President Reagan, it requires hospitals to provide abortions in instances where the health of the mother is in jeopardy in some sense. And the reality is that EMTALA doesn't address abortion. All EMTALA does is it addresses the issue of whether access to health care is available to people that are indigent, whether hospitals can turn away people who don't have the means to pay for hospitalization or ER services.
So this is essentially trying to turn emergency rooms in the state of Idaho into abortion clinics.
That's exactly what they're trying to do. They looked around the United States at different ways to get around the Dobbs decision. And this was the easiest way for them to do it. They came to Idaho. They filed a lawsuit against the state claiming that our law was in violation or that it was preempted by the federal law. But the reality is that EMTALA does not address abortions. And in fact, as Justice Alito mentioned several times yesterday, EMTALA actually says that the life of the unborn child should also be protected. So I think it turns EMTALA on its head. It turns jurisprudence for the last 40 years on its head. And I hope that the Supreme Court can agree with the state of Idaho that after Dobbs, the states have a right and an opportunity to decide for themselves what the law should be regarding abortion.
Well, General Labrador, this would not be contained to Idaho if the federal government, the Biden administration, is successful in forcing this in Idaho. Will they not roll on to other states and do the same?
Well, they already have, Tony. If you remember, right after the Dobbs decision, they sent a letter to every hospital in the United States saying that if they receive any federal funding, that they must provide abortions regardless of what the state law. And they make the claim in that letter that the abortion laws of the various states was actually preempted by EMTALA, which EMTALA has never been found to deal with abortion or even with any specific practice of law in non-abortion related matters. That our attorney who represented the state before the U.S. Supreme Court did a great job explaining to the justices that this was a misreading of the statute.
So if Idaho prevails in defending its law, this could have implications for other states across the nation.
Oh, it will have national implications because it will tell the states that they can decide. California can decide that they want to have abortions, and the state of Idaho, as we have decided, we will have life-affirming positions in our state statutes. Our law allows abortions in case of rape, incest, and the life of the mother. Our law is really clear that there's a subjective standard that the doctors, if they believe that the life of the mother is in jeopardy, that they can have an abortion. And we believe that our law is clear, it's unambiguous, and that it should be protected and upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court.
And just to underscore once again, this is a law that was adopted by the people of Idaho.
Correct, by our elected representatives, absolutely.
So I find this very interesting, Raul, that, you know, the Democrats, the Biden administration, representative of the Democratic Party, pushing abortion every way that they can. And in fact, they've made it very clear through the Women's Health Protection Act that they would like to see abortion all the way up to birth. funded by taxpayers. I'm grateful for Idaho taking a stand on this issue, defending the right of the people of Idaho to determine what the law is going to be. But too many Republicans have gone silent on this issue, and I think that's very troubling and dangerous going into this fall's election.
I think it's important for Republicans to understand this is a very difficult issue. This is an issue that the media tends to exaggerate the implications. But the reality is that most people believe that abortion should be rare in the United States and should have very limited exceptions. And the state of Idaho has limited exceptions, has rape, incest, and the life of the mother. And I think most people agree with that. They agree that in other circumstances, abortion should not be allowed. The state of Idaho, at least, has adjudicated that several times. The legislature has spoken on that several times. And I think when you show that it's the other side that is extreme, that they want abortions available at all instances of the stages of pregnancy, I think that's the position that should be considered extreme. And I think when you take the time to explain to people the differences between the two positions, I think most people are closer to the Idaho position than they are to the more extreme position.
I would think you're absolutely right, but it requires a state like Idaho to actually fight for that law and for the right of the people of Idaho to make that decision. Other states have to do the same. But in order to reveal the extreme nature of the Biden administration and the Democratic Party, you have to engage in a conversation. And I think too many Republicans have gone silent on this issue when we need not be silent on it.
I agree. I think we should defend life at all opportunities that we have and respect other people. I think that the key is to make sure that you're respectful in your conversations with other people. When you have people with dissenting voices, when they have alternative views on these issues, I think you should be respectful, but you should be forceful and encourage them to understand that we value life. You know, the issue that we brought before the Supreme Court, we clearly stated that both EMTALA and Idaho's laws were passed to protect women and to protect unborn children. And I think that's what people need to understand.
And I think that's something that most Americans can support. Attorney General Raul Labrador, great to see you again. Thanks so much for joining us today.
It's always good to see you. Have a wonderful day.